Hey there, future captains of industry. Let's talk shop. Literally, making things costs money. No surprise there, right? That fancy factory churning out widgets isn't powered by good vibes alone. Some costs are a fact of life, whether you make one thingamajig or 1,000. We call these fixed costs. They're the steady drumbeat of your manufacturing operation. Think of it like this. You've got your factory space. Maybe it's rented, maybe it's yours. Either way, that cost is there, month in and month out. Rain or shine, you're paying for that space. That's rent, my friend, a classic fixed cost. Salaries work the same way. Your awesome production manager deserves a steady paycheck, regardless of how many doodads roll off the line. Insurance is another prime example. You need to protect your investment, right? So you shell out those premiums. Again, it's a fixed cost that doesn't budge, no matter how many units you crank out. These costs are the bedrock of your manufacturing business. They're the constants you got to factor in, no matter what. Now let's talk about the fun stuff, variable costs. These are the costs that, you guessed it, vary. They're directly tied to how much you produce. More production, more variable costs. Less production, you got it, fewer variable costs. Think of it as the gas in your manufacturing engine. More gas, more miles. First up, we got labor. Making more widgets, you'll need more hands on deck. More workers mean higher labor costs. Materials are another biggie. Want to double your output? You're going to need double the raw materials. Simple math, really. Then there's energy. Those machines don't run on unicorn tiers, electricity, gas, whatever powers your operation. It all adds up. The more you produce, the more juice you need. And that, my friends, means higher energy costs. Variable costs are all about volume. Okay, time to tie it all together. Profit, glorious profit, is what it's all about, right? It's the golden goose, the pot of gold at the end of the manufacturing rainbow. But here's the kicker. Understanding your fixed and variable costs is the key to unlocking that sweet, sweet profit. See, profit is what's left over after you subtract all your costs, both fixed and variable, from your total revenue. Think of it like this. You sell your widgets for a certain price. That's your revenue. But to make those widgets, you've got those fixed costs breathing down your neck. Rent, salaries, insurance. They're all clamoring for a piece of your revenue pie. And then you've got the variable costs lurking in the shadows, ready to pounce. Every widget you make adds to those variable costs. Materials, labor, energy. It's a delicate dance, my friends. You've got to find that sweet spot where your revenue can tango with your costs, both fixed and variable, and still have enough left over for a decent profit. Here's the thing about manufacturing. It's a numbers game. You've got to be all over those spreadsheets like a spreadsheet ninja. Why? Because understanding your fixed and variable costs is like having X-ray vision into your business. First off, it lets you price your products like a boss. You know exactly what each widget costs you to make, so you can set a price that covers your costs and puts some cash in your pocket. Second, it helps you make smart decisions about production. Got a big order coming in? You can crunch the numbers and see if you need to ramp up production, hire more workers, or maybe even invest in some shiny new equipment. It's all about making informed choices that boost your bottom line, but here's the real kicker. Understanding your costs helps you identify areas where you can save money. Maybe you can negotiate a better rate on your rent, or maybe you can find a more energy-efficient way to power your machines. It's all about efficiency, baby. Section 5, breaking even, the first step to manufacturing profit. Let's talk about a little something called the break-even point. This is the point where you've made just enough revenue to cover all your costs, both fixed and variable. You're not making a profit, but hey, you're not losing money either. It's like that friend who always manages to break even at the poker table. They're not winning, but they're not going home empty-handed either. So how do you figure out this magical break-even point? It's all about a little math. You divide your total fixed costs by your selling price per unit minus your variable cost per unit. Yeah, I know, it sounds a bit like something out of a textbook, but trust me, it's not that complicated. There are tons of online calculators that can do the heavy lifting for you. The important thing is that you know what your break-even point is. It's the first step on the road to profitability. Section 6. Climbing the profit ladder, strategies for success. All right, so you've mastered the break-even point. You're no longer content with just breaking even. You want more, you want to climb that profit ladder and bask in the glow of manufacturing success. Well, my friend, you've come to the right place. Here are a few strategies to help you level up your profit game. First up, let's talk about pricing. Now, I'm not saying you should gouge your customers, but you do need to make sure you're charging enough to cover your costs and make a decent profit. Take a look at your pricing strategy. Can you increase your prices without sending customers running for the hills? Maybe you can offer different pricing tiers for different order sizes. Next, let's talk about volume. The more you produce, the lower your per unit costs become. It's called economies of scale, my friend. Of course, you don't want to produce more than you can sell. But if there's demand for your product, ramping up production can be a great way to boost those profits. Section 7. Trimming the fat, practical tips for lower manufacturing costs. All right, let's get down to brass tacks. We've talked about increasing revenue, but what about reducing costs? After all, a penny saved is a penny earned, right? So let's roll up our sleeves and talk about some practical ways to trim the fat from your manufacturing operation. First up, let's talk about waste. And I'm not just talking about empty coffee cups and scrap paper. I'm talking about wasted materials, wasted time, wasted energy. Take a good hard look at your production process. Are there any steps you can eliminate? Any bottlenecks you can streamline? Next, let's talk about negotiation. Don't be afraid to haggle with your suppliers. Everything's negotiable, my friend. Can you get a better price on your raw materials? What about your shipping costs? Even a small discount can make a big difference to your bottom line. Section 8. Crunching the numbers, calculating your manufacturing profit. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're about to dive into the thrilling world of profit calculation. It's not as scary as it sounds, I promise. In fact, it's pretty straightforward. Ready for a little math? Okay, here we go. To calculate your manufacturing profit, you take your total revenue and subtract your total costs. Total revenue is simply the number of units you sell multiplied by your selling price per unit. Total costs, on the other hand, are a bit more involved. Remember those fixed costs, rent, salaries, insurance, they all factor into your total costs. And don't forget about those variable costs, materials, labor, energy, they all add up too. Once you've got your total revenue and total costs figured out, it's just a simple matter of subtraction. And voila, you've got your manufacturing profit. See, I told you it wasn't that scary. Section 9, staying ahead of the game, adapting to changing costs. Here's the thing about manufacturing, it's a constantly evolving beast. Just when you think you've got a handle on your costs, bam, something changes. Maybe the price of raw materials goes up, or maybe there's a sudden shortage of skilled labor. Whatever the case, it's crucial to stay ahead of the game and adapt to these changing costs. So how do you do that? Well, for starters, you've got to stay informed, keep your finger on the pulse of your industry, read trade publications, attend conferences, network with other manufacturers. The more you know about what's going on in your industry, the better equipped you'll be to anticipate and adapt to changing costs. Another key is to be flexible. Don't be afraid to adjust your production process, your pricing strategy, or even your product line in response to changing market conditions. Section 10, the bottom line, mastering costs for a profitable business. So there you have it, folks, the ins and outs of fixed and variable costs in manufacturing. It's a lot to take in, I know. But remember, the key takeaway here is this: understanding your costs is essential for running a profitable manufacturing business. When you know your numbers, you can make informed decisions about pricing, production, and cost reduction. You can stay ahead of the curve and adapt to changing market conditions. And most importantly, you can turn that manufacturing dream into a profitable reality. So go forth, my friends, and conquer the world of manufacturing. And remember, if you ever get stuck, just refer back to this handy-dandy guide. I'll be here cheering you on every step of the way.